we're adding about 1,000 people a day. I mean, people are continuing to come to the state of Texas. We got a great story to tell, and as the rest of the country goes through some pretty difficult economic times, and Texas is still creating jobs, and people are making decisions about where do they want to live. I mean, are we located in the right place? And there are a lot of folks that are sitting there, and you know, even small businesses and some big businesses that are going through that process right now. It's like Caterpillar, you know, one of the great industrial names around the world. And they made an announcement just here within the last 60 days that they were going to consolidate all of their engine manufacturing in the world. And they're going to do it all in Seguin, Texas. Every Caterpillar engine made in the world is going to be in Seguin, Texas, creating about 1,400 jobs over there. And so we've really created it's the most fascinating story, and you know, don't run out to pick up one of the major newspapers and try to find it there. You probably won't read it there. That's good news. But since November of '07 and 13 months worth of time through December of '08, 80% of all the jobs created in America was in Texas. That's the kind of economy, and that's the type of environment that we've created in the state. So the idea that somehow or another, oh, we can, you know, this water thing will take care of itself. We've got to be planning today, making long-term plans. You know, I see this as an opportunity for us. It's not that I want or that I look forward to bad news for other states, but the fact of the matter is, there is a reason that people are moving to the state of Texas. There is a reason, Jimmy Ruth, that they're coming out to this part of the country, and they're relocating or they're expanding their businesses here. And it's because they know that they can come to a place where we have a relatively low tax structure, that a regulatory climate, that when you know what the rules are, you follow those rules and you'll get a permit. The predictability in our regulatory climate. You're not going to be sued out of existence because of that tort reform bill that we passed back in 2003. That we put our dollars into an accountable school system so that we know that at the end of that education process there's a skilled workforce there. Caterpillar didn't come here just because we got good weather and barbecue. They came here because they knew that there was going to be a predictable regulatory climate, that there was going to be that skilled workforce in Seguin, Texas. That's why they came here. I mean, it's a fascinating thing when you think about over the last basically a little over a year that 8 out of 10 jobs created in America were created in this state that makes up a little less than 1 out of 10 of the population of the entire country. And I tell my friends, and I just got back from Washington, D.C. You know, you're talking about walking in the halls of some interesting places, and the White House is a different place now than it was before. And it just, I mean, this is an incredibly talented president. President Obama is an incredibly talented man. I just happen to disagree greatly with a lot of his philosophical positions about giving all this money away, and my son is sitting there going, Dad, I think I know how this is going to get paid for. And I said, yes, sir, you do, son, and it's going to come out of your pocket and your sister's pocket. And I just think we're making some really bad decisions, long-term decisions, that are going to cost this country a huge amount of money, but that's a whole other speech, and I won't go into that. But it's been our efforts here. I tell people, I say, if you want to see how to create wealth and dollars and have people risking their capital, look at Texas for the model. You keep taxes low, regulatory climate fair and balanced and predictable. You put a legal system in place where people know they're not going to be frivolously sued, and you invest in those workforce and our education. And I said, and then get out of the way and let the private sector do what the private sector does best, and that's create jobs and wealth. You know, you combine all those things, Ron, with our legendary work ethic in this state. And I believe that all of those factors explain why Texas today is the home to more Fortune 500 companies than any other state. Kathleen, if we had stood up in 1988 and made that statement, people would have looked at us like we had a third eye growing out of the middle of our forehead. You remember, I mean, Ron, when we came down here as young legislators in the late 1980s, you could stand on that South Capitol step and judge look all the way to the river through the buildings. You had to borrow a rope to hang yourself in Austin, Texas. Man, it was tough. And if you'd have told somebody Texas is going to be the #1 exporting state in the nation in 20 years, nobody would have believed that. But that's exactly what we've done. Because we've had a very hard-working population, we've created a climate in this state where people could risk their capital, and they knew that they'd get a good return on their investment. And they've come here in droves, and they've succeeded. And I tell people, I said, our economy is at this very unique place in all the 49 states for a reason. And it's because some good, solid, conservative decisions, hard decisions were made. We got criticized greatly for some of the cuts we made back in 2003. But it was that long-term and I think thoughtful leadership from the House and the Senate that's really made a difference, Will. I mean, when you think about what is it that people have to have, what is it people want to see? Caterpillar came here because they knew that we were going to have transportation infrastructure. 70% of those engines going to be exported out of the state. So they knew that there had to be a commitment to transportation infrastructure, roads and bridges that carry the materials, the products to market. It's the power distribution. It's our commitment to the expanding our power generation, and whether it's wind energy out in West Texas and having the transportation system in place, the grid, if you will, to move that power around. I'd like for Texas to be the epicenter for all of the energy, everything except corn-based ethanol, and that's again, that one. But wind and solar and nuclear and clean burning coal and natural gas, I mean, all of those, expand those as much as we can. Let Texas be the place to come. And the basic need in those homes and cities and factories is water. And in 2007, the Texas State Water Plan, it tells us that there's going to be an 18% increase over the next 50 years in our water demand. Our population is expanded, is expected to double over that period of time. And we got to be wise stewards of that resource. And if we're not, the only people we have to blame is ourselves. That's why we've got to invest in our water resources and in the infrastructure of those water resources before it's too late. And I think the key strength of our plan is that it wasn't a product of a bunch of people sitting around here in Austin, Texas. We went out into the country, and this plan is a massive effort on part folks just like you, local men and women who understand what the local needs are. And fortunately, the legislature had the wisdom to approve it. I am a little disappointed that now 7 years later they haven't funded it and funded it properly, and that's why I'm going to be asking the legislature, working really close with them. I want them to use $260 million to fund that new infrastructure account so that we can start building out those water reservoirs and water infrastructure needs that are going to be pivotal to whether we're able to continue to have the growth and create if you want to cut off economic development tomorrow in the state of Texas, send a message that we're not going to have the water resources in the future. I mean, if you want to shut her down, that's the way to do it. But I think if we will invest that money, if the legislature will put that $260 million forward, that we'll be able to use the principal and the interest on that for debt service on the acquisition of those 16 previously designated reservoir sites, for instance. speeding up the acquisition and the construction of those. This water is what the industries and what the municipalities, what the utilities are all going to look at for their future plans. And yeah, that's a pretty big chunk of change, and that's a pretty bold act. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? How long can we keep putting this investment off before we run out of the one thing that no person can do without? I'm convinced it's the right time and the right thing to do.